it to me today.
In layman's terms, I'm looking forward to it. Elizabeth Vargas is back on Monday. Thanks for being so gracious to me all week, Chris. Have a great weekend. Have a great show. And I'll see everybody tomorrow morning. Chris, take it away.
Hannah, always a pleasure. Appreciate the double duty. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. You know the expression. Erasmus reminds us of that as we consider whether our president has a plan or is flying blind. The president is not wrong that there are some gross trade imbalances involving America and other partners, specifically China. But what is the right fix? One thing is for sure right now. This is the biggest bet Trump has made as president, these tariffs. And his legacy now includes the biggest tariff hike ever. But is that a distinction he wanted? It's not a good thing for our 401ks, not right now at least. But the real question is about time. What happens first? China and probably the EU coming to the table, or a massive recession that brings us to our knees? A major bank warned if tariffs stay in place, a recession is 60% more likely. The Fed head, Jerome Powell, said inflation is going to rise and could stay. Markets have surrendered over $6 trillion in value in just the past 2 days. And we are hearing for the first time in a long time that dreaded word, stagflation. Remember that from the 70s? The economy doesn't grow, but unemployment and inflation do. Stagnation and inflation. Trump's response to the early pushback on his idea is pledging to do more of it. Midnight tonight, more tariffs, 10% more on all foreign goods. What will that do? So far, it seems that the immediate effect is to make Americans shake with fear for their portfolios. China responded by retaliating, announcing their own 34% tariff on goods. So what is the gamble here? Trump is banking on boldness, right? That's his signature move. Americans respecting that he did something about China and the EU working us over on trade. But how does that fit into their reckoning of this overall economy and all the jobs we just added and the markets going crazy and people making more and inflation going down and unemployment being down? How do they balance what their problems are? And he's also gambling that our partners will come to the table before our economy collapses, as I said. But again, he isn't wrong that the EU and China take it to us in terms of what we're allowed to sell versus what they're allowed to sell to us in a big way. The real issue for Trump is, of course, China, though. And again, he isn't wrong that opening the economy to China affected American workers for the worse. Gave us lots of cheap stuff to buy, but it cost us on the production side. The annual trade deficit with China grew from $6 billion in the 80s to $295 billion last year. Okay, that tells you the story. Nearly 3 million manufacturing jobs were lost in this country, and the ones who kept their jobs suffered huge pay drops. Factory workers used to earn significantly higher wages than the average, but a decade after China entered the WTO, they now earn 10% below the average. And who benefited the most? Well, America got the cheap goods, but the real winner was China. China's poverty rate dropped, manufacturing wages nearly tripled, their economy grew 11 times larger, letting them become the world's largest exporter in 2009. So while Trump does deserve credit, in my opinion, for trying, okay, that credit is only as good as the result and whether these tariffs actually help or hurt. Many say tariffs are not the tool to fix this, including China, which, is, of course, upping the ante. And economists here and elsewhere say Trump decided to do more of what has not worked in the past. His tariffs are the most deep and wide that we've seen since 1930 Smoot-Hawley, and they're deeper and wider than that. Now, infamously, those tariffs had the exact opposite effect of its intended goal, decreasing exports by 60% as countries retaliated and the depression deepened. Then there is a darker suspicion, okay? Stay with me. Maybe Trump knows the tariffs won't change the trade situation. Maybe he knows American workers can't be supported this way. Maybe the tariffs serve a different purpose. Maybe Liberation Day doesn't refer to trade at all and is instead about taxes, specifically liberating the rich from paying taxes. How? Yale found that if Trump's tariffs remain in place, they could or would raise $2.5 trillion in revenue over a decade. The GOP tax plan to extend, not expand, Trump's tax cuts will cost at least $4 trillion over the next decade. They're also cutting $2 trillion in government spending. So now you smelling what I'm cooking? Is Trump doing these tariffs to help his own tax cut ambitions? If so, that's not only bad economics, it's bad politics, because it would burden the average American household to the tune of nearly $4,000 a year. And for what? Okay? To pay for tax cuts for the rich? And this situation certainly hits the poor harder than the rich. Why? Spending as a function of your income. The bottom 90% spend 95% of their income each year. The top 1%, about 60%. All right, so let's talk to somebody who's really in the business of understanding how to help workers in America, okay? We're going to talk to the labor secretary here, and here is the headline for the secretary. Great job report. 228,000 jobs added in March, including 1,000 manufacturing jobs. Economists estimated 140. So it's good news. Of course, it's lost in all the drama. So let's talk. Trump's labor secretary, Lori Chavez DeRemer. It's good to have you, Lori. Thank you. And congratulations on being named secretary.
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So let me give you one beat on the jobs. Why do you think the economy beat estimates? What does it speak to, in your opinion?
Well, we knocked it out of the park, above expectations. Everybody was betting that the jobs numbers would be low. I can tell you people are believing what the president is saying. He is the president of the American worker, and he's proving that. Over and over again, as he has worked with us in the cabinet and talked to us, he stayed focused. And with me, every conversation has been about the American worker. How are we going to reach the middle class who's been lost for so long? You said it at the top of your monologue. Manufacturing jobs had been lost really over the last 2 decades. I've seen it, in my adult lifetime, and I can tell you we're seeing it come back. We're focused on building back in America, repatriating these jobs, having businesses invest hundreds of billions of dollars in order to be the exporter that we need to be for American dominance in that traded sector. And we're going to need these workers to build these plants, these factories as we move forward. We saw the numbers come in, and most of those were in the construction industry, the transportation industry, and manufacturing, where they've been lost. So we're on the right track, and what I'm going to do is get on the ground and make sure that I'm talking to these American workers. As we move through the country, I'm going to visit all 50 states. We want to see Americans at work for a reason, so that I can come back and report to the president that what he's doing is a great job, and we're going to continue down that road.
No substitute for getting out of D.C., that's for sure. Now, look, there is the economic argument that one of the reasons you overperformed as an economy with jobs is because of the rebound from the wildfires. But be that as it may, the numbers are the numbers, and they're good. The question is, did we erase the gain with the tariffs and all of the market anxiety? What do you say to people who are concerned that these tariffs are not the right way to help workers?
Well, the good news is these numbers, and you're right, they were overshadowed by people wanting to dig in and say that we've had some negativity. I can tell you this, the president is focused on protecting the American worker through these tariffs. Fair trade practices are important to the American worker as well. We want to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, onshoring, repatriating these companies to build in America, and we're going to need those workers to do so. If the economy is growing, and as you said, the numbers are the numbers, we want to erase the losses of the last administration. We want to make sure that we're building up Americans' economy. People are frustrated by what's been happening, and now they feel like they're on the right track, that they can invest. They can save more of their hard-earned dollars. Why would they be on the right track, Secretary?
Why would they be on the right track when these tariffs are depleting their 401k?
Well, listen, more jobs will stay in. Well, here's what we want to focus on, that they have a choice on their job markets, that there are more jobs available to them. I want to make sure that our American workforce is skilled and ready to go. As we see these companies build in America, these manufacturing plants, auto workers, same thing. We want to have the skilled workforce ready to go. I want to be on the ground, almost manufacturing in a box, so to say, where I have a landing team there ready to skill these workers, ready to go right behind the president, and then work with my colleagues, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Treasury, to make sure that we are focused on that American worker. Every single day, we got to get rid of the regulations. We have to deregulate. I'm a former mayor. I understand what it's like on the ground to get these jobs. We can't wait 5, 7, 15 years for permitting. I worked on it in Congress, and I'll take that expertise right here to the Department of Labor as well.
Listen, you're not going to get any argument on regulations. I mean, some have their place, but it's hard to find people who don't think they're too much and too many. But that's fine. But two things can be true at once. You're right on the regulations. It would be great to be as obsessed with retraining workers and getting them to work with technology so they're not replaced by technology as we are with these tariffs. But that's not the choice the president made. He went all in on the tariffs. And what do you say when you get out into the country and they say, how long are we going to have to deal with these tariffs? What are you going to tell people?
Well, you saw who was in the Rose Garden. At least I hope you did. I was sitting there. I saw who was behind me. You had the Teamsters Union. You had the United Auto Workers. You had the workers of America sitting there thanking President Trump for what he is doing. And that's protecting the American worker. Listen, we're just getting started. I'm excited to be the Labor Secretary. I am focused on the positivity that we saw today. And I'm going to work hard every single day to make sure those numbers continue to grow as we rebuild the American economy.
You didn't decide the tariffs, right? This is something that was done by the president and a more insular team. But do you think that there is a chance that there can be an adjustment? If the markets continue to do what they're doing and there is no quick reapproach by our partners, I mean, this is a very broad, very deep set of tariffs. We have never seen anything like it. So then the criticism becomes too much, too fast.
Well, the president has surrounded himself with a great team. In President Trump's first administration, he imposed tariffs as well, and they were successful. We see reports now that grew the economy. It only makes sense to me that this is going to be the same. Listen, the president is not without making the best protections for the American worker. Wherever he has to make a move or pivot, it's always going to be that he's protecting us. He's finally standing up. America is waking up, finally to say, you know what, we've had enough. We're moving forward. Let's get behind the president. 77 million Americans agreed. I agree with him, and we're going to continue down that road. I can't wait to get on the road of America and prove to him and tell the stories, bring it back to Washington, and he continues to put the pedal to the metal. I really just couldn't be more honored to do it.
Do you have a when in terms of what you tell the American people when you're out there who are wondering, you know, when will jobs start coming back? When will you start retraining us? When will these tariffs make an impact? What do you tell them?
Well, I will tell them on the road this weekend, I'm going to be in Pennsylvania. I'm going to be meeting with IBEW. I'm going to be meeting with these union workers who are going to be the ones rebuilding this country. Again, we have a plan in place to get on the ground. We're already seeing the jobs come back, and now we have to double down. We have to double down and make sure that they're skilled and that we're balanced and we have a positive approach to this economy. We're just getting started. This is a good day for Americans, and I'm glad to be a part of it. We had good job numbers, and I'll be back next month, and I'm looking forward to announcing more great numbers.
Secretary, I appreciate your perspective and your ambition in getting out on the road. I got an offer for you. When you're out there, if you're talking to people and you believe that there's a story that Americans are not aware of because the media is too tight in its focus, reach out, let me know. I'll have you on from anywhere you are to tell my audience something that they don't know.
That sounds amazing, Chris. Americans at work. Take a look. Keep an eye on us. I'll be back to tell the story.
All right. Labor Secretary, thank you very much, and good luck doing the work of the people.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Now we're going to take a break, 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, the Labor Secretary has to deal with the fallout for the tariffs, but they weren't her idea, and she doesn't implement them, right? So it's good to hear what that means from her perspective, but we got to now start talking to some people who have to figure out what are they going to do about this? How long do we wait? Okay. So the Republican Party has not been known to be tariff and guided trade friendly. They're a free trade party, or at least they were. So now we have a lot to discuss, and the Democrats seem to see this as a moment of weakness, so they're jumping up. Harris is saying, I'm not going anywhere. Obama's piping up. So I want to bring in a Democrat and a Republican about what the state of play is right now on both sides of the aisle, and they're on together. Next.
This is NewsNation with a trust rating higher than any of our competitors. NewsNation is proud to be America's fastest growing cable news network. See for yourself at joinnn.com.
Market has had a terrible 2 days because they were overwhelmed by how much Trump did in terms of tariffs. And how long it goes and how deep, we don't know. But we don't know who should be thinking about it and what to do and how to discuss it. Congress. Two of the biggest names in the Democratic Party have seen this as an opportunity to pop their head back up and start making a case. Nothing like drama to create opportunity in politics. Former President Obama and former VP Harris both made their witness.
It has been easy during most of our lifetimes to say you are progressive, and now we're at one of those moments where, you know what, it's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
There were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
I got to be honest. I don't know what the former president was talking about, and I don't know why she's laughing. I really don't. I don't think it's funny what we're dealing with. I don't think it's funny the position that she left us in, because she lost that election as much as anything Trump did to win it. But let's hear what members of Congress have to say about what's going on with that situation, but also with what we're seeing in our markets. Members of Congress from each side of the aisle. Okay, Democrat representative from Illinois, Raja Krishnamurthy, and Republican from Texas, Pete Sessions. Good to see you both. And in advance, thank you for a Friday night, and thank you for coming on with a member of the other party. I can't wait until the day comes when that is not something worth noting. But thank you for doing it.
Well,
tonight.
what you don't know, Chris, is that we're all, the three of us, or he and I, and you and I, are good friends.
I do know that.
And we go to the gym at the same time in the morning when Congress is in session.
Yeah, I heard that you have a big grunt game, Raja. I heard in the gym you make a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. You know, you got to keep the noise down. You got to stop dropping your weights. Nobody likes it. All right, let's talk a little politics, but then more policy. Raj, what do you make of Obama and Harris saying what they've said? Do you like the posture?
I think they're going to say what they're going to say. I think the biggest thing is that there's a lot of buyer's remorse out there. I mean, we're getting a lot of calls right now, Chris, from Republicans, Democrats, independents, people across the spectrum, just complaining about the chaos right now in the stock market. And now we have, basically people's 401ks, their retirement savings plummeting over 2 days. And now talk of a recession. We're heading toward a recession and layoffs at major companies in our area, including Stellantis, which just announced that they're going to be laying off 1,000 people, Chris. That's a lot of people all at one time.
Mm-hmm. People are upset, sure, short term. The mid and long term, though, goes to the person with the better idea. So do the Democrats just laugh and say, we told you so? Or do you have to come up with policies and ideas that will sound better than what they're seeing right now?
We absolutely have to have the better ideas. At the same time, a really bad idea is blanket tariffs to basically extract revenues from companies and consumers ultimately, and hardworking families to fund tax cuts. That's a horrible idea, and people don't like it. I'll just tell you one story. I got a call from a small business person who basically said that his orders are drying up. He is unable to control his costs. They're going through the roof. And now he's about to close up shop here in the U.S. And he might be moving to another country at this point. I mean, this is the kind of thing that small business people, and I'm a former small business person. I signed the front of the check and the back of the check. This is real world pain that's happening right now, Chris.
Pete, what are you saying to people who want to know how long and how this gets us to a better place?
I think it's important to know, Chris, that first of all, that we had a good idea that the president was going to do something, that his mathematics about the effect, not just the overall effect, but the effect of what he would do, he felt like it would be positive for the country. I will be quite blunt. As I've always said, I am a Republican. I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican, and this is not something that I would focus on. But with that said I was willing to listen to the president to see where this went. The last few days have provided enough feedback to me to say maybe it's something that he's going to have to go back and check his calculus. But I saw the Secretary of Commerce on today, Secretary Ludwig, and he said, President's going to end up sticking with this. So I think next, now that we've seen the answer, we need to ask the questions. Okay, tell us more about your expectation of performance. Tell us more about what you would expect to gain from this. Please tell us how long it would take. Just like any other policy debate or decision, we need to know more about it. I spent a great deal of time last week with the USTR. One of the guys that's there, Larry Calhoun, came to my office and we took feedback from 10 people across Texas, and they spoke very plainly, and Larry listened very intently. I still will be quite honest. I don't know for sure if it means that Canada and Mexico will simply be as they were with the trade deal that was the president's that occurred in 17 and 18. I don't know what exactly is the trade policy for Canada and Mexico, but I will tell you that Texas, my home state, our largest trading partner is Mexico. And if that turns negative, there will be repercussions from every single member of Congress, because it's not just in our backyard that you've already heard that's dangerous. It is a big nut of $140 billion.
No question. And look, Trump has a tendency to swing for the fences. And he went bigger than we've ever seen with the tariffs, broader and deeper than we've ever seen before. Tariffs, like tax policy, has to be targeted, circumstantial, and surgical. And he is not any of those things right now. So I'm very respectful of your misgivings, Pete. It's very rare in this environment. Question for each of you, and Pete, I'll ask you first and I'll end with you, Raj. You know, you guys, not in either of your times, because you're both young, but Congress has ceded authority to the presidents over the years, in the 30s, the 60s, the 70s, that enabled this president and others to tariff. But it's supposed to be limited, specific, and in response to an emergent situation. You can argue very easily, Pete, Trump does not check those boxes with what he's doing right now. Is there any movement within the caucus to say, hey, we gave you authority, we didn't give you authority to do this?
Well, certainly the Senate has indicated that they do follow that pattern, that they would want to make sure that within 60 days, there had to be a vote on these. But I think in some respects, and I'm not arguing for any president to have more nimbleness or authority, but the expectation is, and I think we'll still see it here, if the results are not what the president has said he expected or would be, then he would be expected to accordingly move that way. I think that we've not heard enough, and I have not, about, okay, now that I've done what I've done, here's the expected performance that would come from them. We have heard It's done to make the American worker better, to bring jobs here. Let's now check that math. And I'm willing to let the president give that assertion because it's his math that's taken us here.
Well, it's somebody's math. I hope it's not ChatGPT's. I just wish he had done it before. Raja, last word to you. What do you think on this?
Chris, it's based on fake data, man. I mean, just take one country where he says he's putting reciprocal tariffs on, Israel. He said Israel is imposing 33% tariffs on American products. You look at Israel, they're imposing 0% duties on American products as of April 1st. And so that's just wrong. And you're absolutely right. We in Congress need to take our power back from the executive on this. There's a privilege resolution coming to the floor. I hope that Pete will please consider it, that basically ends this fake emergency so that we can get back to more reasonable trade policy.
Well, look, Pete and the rest of the caucus are going to want the president to lead. And I would argue that he should have made the case first. And he should have told the American people, you're going to have to forbear. You're going to have to not buy Chinese products. You're going to have to buy American. You're going to have to buy less for a while if we want this to work. But he didn't. So now he's going to have to do it after the fact. We'll see how it goes. Raja, I appreciate you being on as always. And Pete, I appreciate the candor. I hope it doesn't get you primaried. But it's good to have you here, speaking truth to the audience. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete, take care. I thought he was going to say something about being primary. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, I wanted to bring in better minds, and I happen to have two friends who I turn to help understand that nexus of news and business. Okay, Allison Cossack, I worked with her at CNN for a long time. She's got a great book out about empowering women financially. Very big issue. And my best friend, John McNiff, an institutional investor who explains what's happening in the markets to me all the time. And he helped me understand what matters, plus and minus, with these tariffs. And he'll do the same for you right after this.
This is Cuomo on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Okay, I have two friends joining us now who understand the markets way better than I do, and they've been listening to our guests tonight. What are the variables and concerns for one of them, who's a major institutional investor and an economic analyst, as well as joining with a journalist who has a great new book out that's filling a true need, empowering women to make and use money wisely. John McNiff, founder and CIO of Modem Capital Management. He doesn't need those glasses. They just make him look smart. And Allison Cossack, former CNN business correspondent who covered the market for years and has taught me so much and is now the author of What's Up with Women and Money. Congratulations on the book, my friend. Johnny, thank you for jumping in. So let me start with you, John. You were listening to the labor secretary and then the politicians. I was surprised to hear Pete Sessions say that, Republicans need to know a little bit more. What matters to you in terms of what these tariffs are doing in the markets?
So for me, the focus is on this increase in uncertainty, and which the markets will call increase in volatility. And the reaction to the tariffs has been a very dramatic spike in volatility, which is the VIX index. It's gone from 20 to 45 in the past 3 days. And then the reaction of the stock market, clearly, with the 5 trillion wipeout of value, NASDAQ gone into a bear market correction, S&P 17% off the highs, 11% lower in the past 2 days. Credit spreads in the corporate and high yield markets have all widened out. All of these are not positives for these policies. And that's even before you kind of look at how these policies and this uncertainty is affecting the behaviors of the consumer and households and corporations.
So how do you process the sell proposition, Allison, from Trump of, well, this is what we have to do. We got to turn the screws, and it's only been a couple of days. No big deal.
It is a big deal if you're an investor in this market. We even saw some IPOs that were ready to go. They've postponed their IPOs. So you're seeing an immediate real world business impact just on the beginnings of these tariffs. And then of course, I think the overarching reason why you're seeing this massive sell-off over the past 2 days is there's a concern about a recession, that the tariffs will have a real effect on the economy. JP Morgan increased its likelihood that a recession will happen from 40% to 60%. Why? Because what are these tariffs? They're a tax on consumers and businesses, and it's a big hit to the economy. And by targeting things that Americans buy, this causes a lot of disruption in the economy. So the thinking is if these policies stay throughout the year, it could cause real damage to the economy and cause a recession. And I'm also hearing the S word being thrown around. I'm talking about stagflation. That's even worse, to have a recession with high inflation. That's an even stickier situation to get out of. It leaves the Fed with fewer tools to turn to, because if you go ahead and keep lowering interest rates, if I check my economics 101, that could stoke inflation even more.
Yeah. Right. Just to touch on that point,
Chris, very stimulated by that. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at the March FOMC meeting and look at the two highlighted risks that they all had as their risks to their outlook, there were 1, rising inflation, and 2, rising unemployment. Both of that plays into the stagflation scenario that the markets are worried about and was just mentioned. So
the Secretary says
is worried about it. The markets are worried about it. Consumers are worried about it because you're seeing it in your real big pocketbook on a daily basis. So that uncertainty and that scenario is a very concern for everybody.
First, never cut me off again when I'm about to ask you a question. Second, so what do you make of when the Labor Secretary said, hey, the workers know that this is for them? When are tariffs good for the workers and when not? What do you look at for that, John?
I think it's a blunt tool that can be used. And if you look, there are benefits to it. They will take time. But as a blunt tool, there's going to be reverberations that are most likely negative in the short term. And that's what we're trying to figure out. So if you look at the trade data, we have trade deficits with a lot of countries. There's a way to work through that. When Trump was in office the first time, he had tariffs on China. The markets absorbed that. They were looked positively. Biden kept those tariffs in place. This is much different because he's coming at the global economy. He hasn't even tried to negotiate any different terms on trade. He's just coming and putting a sledgehammer down. And that's what I think the markets are seeing. They're anticipating that he would back off with the negative kind of stock reaction leading up to the tariffs. And when that did not happen on the 2nd, you saw this continued selling then that occurred as people really realizing that he's dug in on this idea with the tariffs. So time will tell. I just think it's not the immediate reaction is fairly negative by the markets, fairly negative to the consumer, and it's more of a long-term game. But we'll see, how that plays out because we're in uncharted territory here.
So, Allison, John was explaining it to me earlier today about how, this is not something you usually do this broad and this deep. This is historic and not for good reason. Now, that gives him space to pull back. I thought it was really interesting to hear Pete Sessions say, Allison, I wish he would explain what he expects out of these. Usually you want that first. Well, that's unusual to hear that from a real Republican, isn't it?
The politics aside, I've been hearing analogies being made to the massive sell-off we've seen in the market over the past couple of days, analogies being made to what we saw during COVID. And then you look at what the Dow did today. This is the third biggest plunge it's had, 3 historic plunges, and the other 2 were during COVID. The difference is that this situation can be changed literally this weekend, Chris. If President Trump comes out and says, let's go ahead and do something else about this tariff situation, you'll see the market rally on Monday. The same thing couldn't be said for COVID. All of these situations are unprecedented, but the difference with this situation versus what we saw during COVID, those massive sell-offs, is President Trump can change this on a dime.
Hey, let me ask you this, Cossack. What's going on with women and money? What's this book about? Why should I have every female and male I know read it?
So I wrote this book because of my personal situation. As you know, I was CNN's business correspondent for 15 years, oftentimes reporting right from the New York Stock Exchange. But in my own life, I wasn't involved in my own personal financial, life. And this was when I started at CNN. And this was actually one of the biggest mistakes of my life, because when my marriage went bad, because I let my husband handle all things financial, I felt stuck in the marriage. I stayed in it years longer than I should have. I didn't have the experience of making big financial decisions, so I didn't have that confidence. And when I finally got out of that, I realized that there are a lot of women out there across the income spectrum making 6 figures or 5 or less, women who are ages 18 to 70, whether you're single, widowed, divorced, or married. Many women I found aren't fully involved in their financial lives. And this can lead to really bad outcomes. And this, Chris, isn't something that women talk about because it's embarrassing. There's a lot of shame with this. And there's a fear of being judged by our peers, that we can seem unintelligent. And that's just not the case. We're not incompetent or incapable of doing this stuff. We just don't have the experience of doing it. We're not confident.
I love it. We should do it on the podcast also, Allison, so I'll be in touch so I can help spread this as much as possible. It's very positive. The only thing I disagree with is, you're one of the most competent people I've ever been around. Life takes us in different directions, but you've always been able to handle your business. That's for sure.
Well,
Allison Cossack,
if I can just be clear, reporting on the markets about the macroeconomy, what I did at CNN and what I continue to do is very different from putting your own money in because there's a fear of losing it. I had 2 kids under the age of 10 years old at the time. The worry about making mistakes, that was the thinking.
No, very real, very good distinction. I asked John McNiff for financial advice all the time to help me. He won't do it. He's like, I only deal with big shots and investors. You're not worth it. You don't have enough money. Go sell pizzas. It has not had great advice for me, I'll be honest. But for everybody else, they seem to love him. John McNiff, I love you. Usually you only wear glasses so I won't hit you in the face. But I liked seeing you with him tonight. And I love you giving me the benefit of your acumen.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one prediction for the night. This is going to be your best segment.
This is going to be bad, what he's about to say.
No, this is your best segment.
This is definitely my best segment.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely my best segment, and I hope you enjoy yourself at the disco tonight.
If you actually picked up a check once in a while, so let's keep that in mind.
I gotta go. John McNiff, Modem Capital. No, Allison, don't do that. John McNiff, Modem Capital. Thank you very much. Have a good night at the disco. Allison Cossack, thank you very much. Good luck with the book.
Thanks.
4 minutes and 15 seconds. I'm very generous. Very, very generous. All right, now let's switch gears. Okay, you want to talk about things to worry about? Remember, we were talking about the Houthi rebels and how the operation and signal and all that, that was all noise, okay? Who backs the Houthis? Iran. Who is working double time right now to get a nuclear weapon? Iran. What is America going to do? The president is rattling the saber. This ain't tariffs, okay? Rattling the saber matters. What happens with America and Iran? What does it mean for our other relationships, specifically Russia and China? A man who operated in the region, who knows the politics and the problems. Next.
The biggest trials in America, and Banfield is all over them. Lori Vallow, Karen Reed, the Menendez brothers. You know their names. Now see how justice unfolds. Could Lori Vallow be convicted in the murder of her 4th husband? Will Karen Reed's 2nd trial end with a verdict or another mistrial? And what will happen at the Menendez brothers' resentencing? Plus, all eyes are on the trial of the illegal immigrant accused of killing jogger mom Rachel Morin. The case isn't closed until you've seen it on Banfield, only on NewsNation.
Forget about signal, okay? Take the real sign, which is what's happening with the Houthis is something you got to watch in Yemen because they are just a proxy for Iran. And the United States has spent $3 billion in less than 3 weeks on those attacks, okay? Trump just gave Iran an ultimatum. Make a deal on nukes or face the wrath of the U.S., saying, quote, if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. If he goes as big with the bombing as he did with the tariffs, there may be no more Iran. So is that a legit threat? What are the variables and concerns? Joining me now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, General Wesley Clark. General, let's put to the side the fact that we don't know what they're doing in Iran because Trump got out of the deal that was in place there. So there was no safeguard at all. But putting that in the past, what are your concerns and what are the variables with this state of play between Iran and the U.S. and getting a deal on keeping them from nukes?
I think they understand that the only way they'll be safe is to have a nuclear weapon. I think they're working on it right now. I think they'll have it soon. How soon? 6 weeks, 6 months, less than a year. Will it be deliverable in a missile? Don't know yet. Might be. And don't forget, Russia is their strategic ally.
So the idea of we're going to bomb you or else, what comes along with a threat like that?
Well, I think once you make a threat like that, you have to follow through. I'm sorry he made the threat like that, but he did make the threat like that. So already the supreme leader in Iran has said, no, we're not going to bow to your threat. We're not coming to the table to talk to you directly. No. So I would assume that the reason we have a second aircraft carrier there, we're building up forces, we're bringing A-10s into the region. Yeah, we're going to do it. But can we do it with air power alone? And what is the end state we're seeking? That's the question.
So what if Russia says you better not do that?
Well, I think that Russia doesn't really have that much say in this case. Unless there are Russian troops in on the ground that we don't know about right now, Russia's irrelevant.
So who is relevant and what happens if you bomb? What is the likely scenario in terms of how they respond?
Well, they're certainly going to attack any bases that we have in the region, probably try to bring Israel into it, and maybe we'll have the Israelis even participate with us. After all, they've been the major instigators of this since at least 2007 when I met with Bibi before he was prime minister the second time.
You know the old expression, right? If you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail. When you look at the tariffs and then this situation, is this trying to be too tough too soon? And it's like the opposite of the approach with Russia. Do you see it that way?
I do see it that way, and I think that we've got so many balls in the air right now that we're probably going to drop some of them. The tariffs are a big problem. Ukraine is not going to go away. Putin's playing us like a fiddle, and then we're going to march into this fight with Iran. And the thing is, there's no guarantee that after a few airstrikes, it's going to be done. Just like with the Houthis. They're very tough. You're probably going to end up having to put some ground troops in, at least air assault them in, and pick them up by helicopters. They're going to have to go in on the ground and finish the job.
You think Trump will put American boots on the ground with any risk of what happened? I mean, if there's one thing that we know about this president is that he does not look favorably on really any military mission that involves ground troops in the last 25 years.
Yeah, that's true. But in this case, you wouldn't be trying to occupy Iran or Yemen. You'd be going after headquarters. You'd be exploiting the information you got out of bombing, and you'd be, in this case of Iran, seizing nuclear materials or scientists or trying to ensure that you got it all.
Mm-hmm. General Clark, I've been trusting you for a long time, and it's kind of frightening how clear-eyed you are on what might happen here. Let's hope there's another way. Let's hope there's another way. General Clark, thank you very much, as always. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris.
We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the go. I'm Marnie Hughes. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app or on your Alexa. Just say play NewsNation.
Youngest Carolina means when she says you're doing too much. The president has